So, this video might come as a surprise to some. Half-Life, a series created by Valve that saw its first game released in 1998. Once released, it became a staple of the FPS genre going forward, with its sequel, Half-Life 2, doing the same in 2004. Despite its influence, I never played it. In fact, the first Half-Life was so unknown to me that I saw it in the same way I saw the original Marathon games, things that existed but I almost never saw footage of naturally. Everyone talked about Half-Life 2, and so my exposure was majorly through that. Gmod videos, SFM animations using assets from the games, the occasional glances I gave it when people started talking about it again. The most direct exposure I ever had was via Portal, and more specifically, Portal 2. Last year, my interests changed. Destiny had burnt me out significantly, and Half-Life 2 had its 20th anniversary, with Half-Life in general having its 25th anniversary just the year prior. Talks about it were at a major high. So, my mild intrigue turned into full-on interest. A friend of mine would get me the games in December of 2024, and I didn't play them until May of this year. I am so sorry, my guy. But, as you can tell, one day I felt that push. Nothing was happening, I felt free, and so I jumped into Half-Life. Playing this game felt like a fever dream in the immediate moments. It was this clash of things that I loved and, in the moment, hated. By the time it was done, which took me 4 days due to horrible scheduling, I didn't even really know what to think. I wasn't vibing with the gameplay. Call me a heretic, I know. But there was a level of late 90s jank that I personally didn't synergize with at the time. Still, much like how Dark Souls 1 instilled a similar feeling, that was about the only thing I didn't really like. See, Half-Life did a really good job at atmosphere. Despite any gripes I had with gameplay during my first playthrough, I felt the need to take a step back and examine the environment. The opening tram ride, while long, felt like a perfect introduction to the game and to the Black Mesa facility. The facility itself was full of little buttons you could press for shits and giggles, and the NPCs actually reacted to it. There are whole videos on how complex the AI in this game can be, and it's truly fascinating considering when it came out. Then, after the Resonance Cascade, the inciting incident of the game's story, everything shifted. The facility was actively falling apart, and one of my favorite feelings in fiction is that of an ongoing apocalypse. Just based on that alone, a lot of the Earthbound sections of the game had me hooked. Also, the HECU Marines coming in to clean up made sense in my head and added another layer to the chaos besides the aliens. Things just started clicking, even in chapters I wasn't really fond of, which were mainly honor rail and residue processing. Then the aliens started shooting back. That was surface tension, and it's fun. However, with the gameplay gripes I had earlier and the ongoing apocalypse feeling being not as strong, that and its following chapter, Forget About Freeman, didn't really hit with me as much as the chapters that sandwiched it, which leads me to Zen. Zen has a messy history, known for being relatively undercooked. Unfortunately, that does show. The chapter, Zen, is a single map with a not-so-good parkour section. Interloper has a ridiculous opening map, and later on, these weird spinny lifts that just mess with coordination. That and other things, such as details being easily missable like the friendly Vortigons in the first factory section, make Zen feel like it needed more time in the oven. But that's where my criticism of Zen stops, because where it lacks in gameplay and design, which are big things, not gonna lie, it oozes in vibes. My first reaction to seeing Zen was, holy shit, because out of all the Half-Lives, Zen was the most unknown thing to me. I knew the basics, I knew about the Resonance Cascade, I knew the goofy voices and sound effects. For Zen, all I had was a picture of the Nihilith. Zen caught me so off guard that despite my initial frustrations with the bugged Gonarch and its iffy level design, I couldn't hate it. It managed to touch another one of my favorite feelings in fiction: complete and utter weirdness. It's not a feeling that I get often. In fact, it's ridiculously hard to make me feel like something is truly alien. We often look to things we know to craft alien worlds, be it through a lack of information or an overwhelming amount. Most of the time, though, it comes off as a jungle but with different colors and slightly strange-looking life. Zen wasn't that. The trypophobia-inducing walls, I wasn't even convinced were organic. The floating environment almost had no rhyme or reason to it. The harsh green skybox and desaturated grounds made it all feel so strange. Then the factory. The Zen factory was the opposite. Sure, it's alien, but beyond the continued motifs of trypophobia-inducing walls, now made of metal, and the strange technology, my first thoughts going through it was, yeah, this feels a lot less alien, and I think that's a good thing. It told me that the Nihilanth was bringing order to a place that had none. It was the cosmic equivalent of putting a military base in the middle of a jungle. Then I started looking at the Nihilanth itself. The stitched-on arm, the synthetic flotation device, the shackles. This creature was something else, and I loved that. I started looking at its forces, the Vortigaunts, the alien grunts, the alien controllers, even the Gargantuas. I saw something. Vortigaunts were the only ones we knew were natural entities. We saw alien grunts get made in a factory. Gargantuas were covered in armor and had bloody flamethrowers installed. The controllers? They straight up have mechanical details and a synthetic brain spike. They aren't natural at all. They're also artificial. Ugh, almost forgot. The G-Man, an entity without a real name. A true mystery. The vibe shifted immediately after he intercepts you after the Nihilith dies. The way he speaks, the way he just warps you to different places. It all adds to this strange feeling. Which is funny, because he looks human. Almost. It's these details that, over a day after finishing the game, made me do a very quick re-examination and conclude that Half-Life wasn't just a game I only enjoy the atmosphere of, but genuinely enjoyed as a concept. Everything just clicked for me. So, after finishing Half-Life 2, its episodes, and later Portal 1, I went back to replay Half-Life and solidify my opinion on it. And it felt good. Great, even. I still had some issues with the gameplay, but I generally enjoyed it a lot more. I was able to pick out which levels I liked the least and which ones I liked the most. I basked in the environment of Zen, I paid more attention to the music. Half-Life's music is funny to me. There are a lot of short stingers, and a lot of people are familiar with the more action-heavy tracks. Hell, I used arguably the most popular earlier in the video. But my favorite group of tracks that Kelly Bailey did for this game are the ambient tracks. Vague Voices is the first track you hear in the game, playing during the tram ride. It took what was already an interesting ride packed with detail to something truly iconic. My personal favorites from the ambient group are Dimensionless Deepness and Electric Guitar Ambiance. But just because I've been glazing the ambient tracks doesn't mean I don't like the action. Just listen to this snippet of klaxon beat. At the end of the day, the more I learned about Half-Life, the more I sat on it after my first playthrough. The more I went through in my second, the more I loved it. When the details, atmosphere, music, and gameplay finally hit me, it hit hard. I can see why this game was so loved, and it'll occupy my brain for years to come. But this video isn't over. Half-Life has a fan remake, one that many people prefer, and even if they don't, is largely beloved. It took me some time to get to it, but it's time I talk about Black Mesa. Black Mesa is a fan-made game that was originally developed as a mod. The idea was to take Half-Life 1 and remake it in the Source engine, which Half-Life 2 used. and to use that opportunity to tie it into its sequel more. It was released in 2012 as a mod, released partially in 2015 for retail, and a full release in 2020. Much like its predecessor, it took me a while to get to it. In fact, I had it in my library as long as I had the other Half-Life games. It was an inevitability that I'd get to it. Not only did two of my friends suggest I play it first, but even after I was done with Half-Life 1, many were excited to see my takes on Black Mesa. I'd even watched one of them run through the Zen chapters, as I was curious and a little worried, but I'll get to that in a bit. What finally convinced me to play Black Mesa was my second run of Half-Life, and a video on the emergency alert system dialogue that was used in the game. Merely listening to that gave me a sense of dread that I didn't even feel from the original game. So after a month of dilly-dallying, I jumped in. What I found was an extremely environmentally detailed recreation that actually kinda astonished me. They managed to pack the Earth levels with so many seemingly minor things that it felt even more alive than the original game's world did at points. A lot of that can be chalked up to graphical fidelity, but it's cool to see that even the whiteboards are different and have different notes on them, per map. There's a moment in the original game where you come across a random water spill near a bunch of turrets. Black Mesa shows the water having come from a previously activated turret shooting the pipes. Things like that are everywhere in this game, and it's awesome. Another thing I really liked is how NPCs can interact with each other. There's a moment in Questionable Ethics where, if the guard survives, he'll talk with the surviving scientists. Same thing for one of the guards in Surface Tension, leading to the armory. There are apparently moments like that all over the game, and it's really cool. Another cool detail that I like is how it feels like it leads more into Half-Life 2. From the way people interact with you to the gameplay decisions made within the source engine that bridge the two games, also turning G-Man's monologue at the end into the more psychedelic variant present in the sequel. One thing I really enjoyed was how it took the chapters I disliked, Honor Rail and Residue Processing, and the chapters I found generally uninteresting by comparison, Surface Tension and Forget About Freeman, into something more. Honor Rail was shortened, but also had a lot more variety in its encounters. The push towards the satellite launch at the end felt a lot more grand in Black Mesa. Residue Processing also felt easier to go through, but I think it's one of those levels that's kind of bad through concept. It's designed as a pause button, and to me, it stops all momentum as a result. Props to Black Mesa for trying, though. However, the real sauce was injected into Surface Tension and Forget About Freeman. These two levels went from, oh shit, active war zone to, the apocalypse is outside now. One may ask how I can think that when the war zone is because of the apocalypse, and to that I say that it's all in tone. The original Surface Tension to me felt like the standard FPS chapter in modern games. Honestly, Surface Tension as a level might have been the selling point because of it. However, by doing so, it strips a lot of the vibe that I enjoyed from the prior Earth levels, only kicking in when the military starts yelling that they're leaving. Surface Tension in Black Mesa, however, pushes the apocalypse out. It keeps that tone of everything falling apart. Aliens don't just start dropping in, they start kicking the HECU's ass in a way that's shown to the player. It's also heard, as during the chapter, you hear various radio calls between the HECU as the alien swarm starts pushing them back. In the no-clip documentary for the game, lead level designer Sean Kemp talked about how Surface Tension was originally shortened when Black Mesa was released as a mod. This led to the creation of the Surface Tension Uncut mod, citing that he felt the sections that were cut were important for storytelling. While Surface Tension's cut was unintentional, the Black Mesa devs, with Kemp now on the team, were able to rework the mission and include the missing sections. These last sections were critical to my own enjoyment of the level. The dynamic between the HECU and the Zen army was a palpable feeling that I just fell in love with, which leads me to the HECU. I love the Marines this time around. The HECU in the original game felt kinda like the standard video game bad guys, but in Black Mesa they feel conflicted. They don't want to be here. There's a line where one talks about having killed a dozen scientists and how none of them ever fought back. In the original, the Marine just says this. In Black Mesa, the way the Marine says it conveys he doesn't like it and is trying to find something to justify his mission. It lends credence to the idea that they're so focused on Freeman because he's the only one who is actually fighting back. He's the only one besides the aliens that are giving the HECU something to justify their actions. You further see this touch of humanity in Surface Tension. When the aliens start coming in, they're scared. You feel that they're losing. These are bloody Marines. These are some of the best, and the Nihilant's forces have them retreating in terror. They weren't prepared for this, and it shows. My selling point for the original Half-Life would have been unforeseen consequences. My selling point for Black Mesa is surface tension. After all of that, and after a trip through the Lambda complex, you finally enter Zen. Zen's chapters were released a bit after the initial launch of the retail game, and I'm mixed. Let me start with the good. Zen is a much more engaging gameplay section in Black Mesa than it ever was in the original game. It feels like it's finished. Furthermore, it brings in things that Valve had wanted to do, such as truly relay that the Vortigaunts were slaves. In the original game, you only have a couple of moments where you see the Vortigaunts as neutral, which isn't noticed by a lot of players upon their first playthrough. I was actually warned before I entered the room, which is how I saw it. In Black Mesa, you hear and are then shown that the Vortigaunts don't want to be here, and that the Nihilant's forces are beating them into submission, figuratively and literally. Furthermore, the details present in the Earthbound levels are still very much present here. More emphasis is put on the survey teams sent into the border world, with even a small station being built. This place features HEV zombies and a plan to take down the Gonarch, which, if you choose, can give you an achievement if you carry a canister all the way through. I also like that you actually deal with the Zen factory. In the original, you kind of just go through it. In Black Mesa, you actively work to destroy it. Combined with the other things you do while in Zen, you see why the Vortigaunts praise you so much in Half-Life 2. I find Zen and Interloper pretty long, the latter kind of making me wish for its end sooner, but they're not bad levels otherwise. Interloper even includes a lift section that, combined with the music, releases a hit of dopamine that was so powerful I woke the fuck up upon my first playthrough. The Zen that Crowbar Collective made for Black Mesa is on its own a fantastic series of levels. The only reason I haven't talked about Gonarch yet is because I have no notes. It's perfect. Absolute Zenema. So if I like the Zen presented, and all the details in it, why do I feel mixed? Well, all the details of the original Zen, the environmental atmosphere, the things that made me love the original Zen despite its state are the very things missing from Black Mesa's Zen. And despite how good that Zen is, it leaves a hole in its absence. I understand why Zen is different. I should get that out of the way. Not only is there not too much reference, but because of how undercooked it was, the Black Mesa team had to essentially create an entirely new Zen to add in their design philosophy and create something that isn't just parkour on rotating platforms. Several of the lead developers spoke of how much of Zen was them creating rather than reshaping, like what was done with a lot of Earth chapters. This includes things like greater emphasis on the survey team, actual level design, mechanics, detailing, vignettes, even the damn color shift from cool blues to harsh reds. These are sound decisions. When explained in the no-clip documentary, it all made sense. It's a personal thing, that I miss the way Zen felt. Even the factory doesn't really touch that. It's alien, don't get me wrong, but it feels too alien. I mentioned that I saw Zen as chaos. Things didn't make sense to the human mind, whereas the factory made too much sense. It was order. However, the factory in Black Mesa Zen is another alien construct. It didn't grip me as much in terms of vibes. I guess that really is where the root of my issues with Black Mesa Zen lie. Just in vibes. Everything else is fine. After the aforementioned lift section in Interloper, you reach the top of the Zen factory tower. You have a reprieve, a moment of respite. Once more, the difference in tone shines, as while Half-Life's Nihilanth portal was cold and sharp, Black Mesa's is bright, peaceful. You enter the portal to face the Nihilanth. I'm not the biggest fan of the Nihilanth's design here. There are some details lost, some that to me seem misplaced. Same goes for Vortigaunts and the alien controllers and grunts. But Half-Life 2 is more to blame for my issues with the Vortigaunt redesign. Grunts are made to fit them, so I'm pretty sure they're genetic manipulations of them. Controllers get actual mechanics this time, but they lose their artificial nature. Again, the details I loved about the original Zen were largely missing, except for the Gonarch, and that goes all the way up to the Nihilanth. But where I feel iffy on the Nihilanth's design, I can't say the same for the fight itself. The Nihilanth fight is insane. I like the tone in the original, don't get me wrong. Atmosphere's still S tier. But the Black Mesa iteration struck gold. This is something beyond you, with powers to rival even enemies you'll face in the future. I have no problems with this chaotic-ass fight. It's perfection. And after all that, the factory explodes and the G-Man intercepts you, giving you that same speech. Just like that, it's over. But I'm still not done talking yet. Like a bull squid after you blow half your magazine into it, I didn't hear a bell. I only briefly touched on it earlier, but I need to talk about the music. The soundtrack to Black Mesa had been hyped up to me before I went in, so I had a special curiosity for it as I booted up the game. By the end, I think Black Mesa excels at the opposite end that Half-Life does. I love Half-Life's ambient tracks. I love Black Mesa's action tracks. It took a while to kick in, but do you want to know when it did? Blast Pit. I had just gotten done fueling the rocket and was heading back to the silo to burn the tentacles when the music kicked in and made a 30-second dash to the control room into something ethereal. And it would do this time and time again. When Black Mesa wants you to feel something, it makes you feel it via the music, and I appreciate the shit out of it. I don't know who did the music integration, whether it was Joel Nielsen, the composer, or anyone else that worked on audio, but whoever did it was a genius. Playing through the Half-Life games has brought a breath of fresh air to me after years of gradually increasing desolation and depression. Half-Life itself is an awesome game that laid a foundation for years to come and taps into fiction vibes that other games seldom succeed in. Black Mesa, a fan-made remake, is so good that I understand why my friends wanted me to dive into it. In both games, you can feel the amount of passion put into them, to make something people will remember for years to come. Even my nitpicky ass can't deny that. Both of these are half the reason why I have now joined a chorus of people clamoring for Half-Life 3. This universe is truly fascinating, and I'm so happy to have actually taken the time to dive into it. I know some people have been looking forward to this since I released the Final Thoughts on Destiny video. So, here we are. These were my thoughts on Half-Life and Black Mesa. Hope you enjoyed me doing these on something other than Destiny. I omitted a few things I initially wanted to talk about for the sake of time. Like one of the feelings I had while playing Black Mesa that was just a smidge complicated to explain in a way that made sense. It's a good one, don't worry. I also didn't talk about how much I love Hound Eyes or any of the other Zen creatures, and also how much I want a Hound Eye as a pet. They're really adorable. Who knows, maybe I'll tackle those things in another video. Maybe I'll do a thoughts on Half-Life 2. It'll probably be a bit though. Getting the limited footage required for this video ate up my storage real fast, hence why I felt pressed for time. That's about it. I love both of these games. See ya.